What's up, guys? We're back at the shop. About to rebuild a transmission for the Camaro. We got the gear ratios out the Nova. Gonna put them in the Camaro case, replace a few of the sliders, a few of the gears, and get ready for to put it back in once we get the motor back together. Stay tuned. Just got the cluster shafts just sitting in the case, just sitting out the way. First thing I gotta do is I gotta build my main shaft, put the gears back on it. So the first gear that's gonna go on is first gear. It's the biggest gear. Let me show y'all something. This gear right here, this is what you call a slider. This is the first gear slider. It has gears on it because the first gear slider, when it sits in the transmission, it sits right here and it engages the reverse gear to put the transmission in reverse. So this is the only slider that's gonna have gears on it. The other sliders made like this. Alright guys, so I got the first gear slider on, and you can see it's engaged in the splines on the main shaft. This is first gear. Let me show y'all if you can see here, this first gear is a 316. That's the first gear I'm gonna be running in that I run in the Camaro most of the time. So the main shaft gears, as you can see here, they free spinning on the main shaft. So I'll show y'all better when I get it all together. But the forks, the shifter forks go right here. So when you move that shifter, it moves the forks, it moves the slider and engages that gear. It locks this gear in, but this gear is always locked in with the cluster gears. But what this slider does, it's lock it in with the main shaft. That gives you your gear ratio. So now I gotta press the bearing on. We'll go over here to the press and do that. So I got the main shaft sitting in the press. To press the bearing on. You just keep pressing until it gets tight. It shows the bearing is all the way up in place. So I got all the gears on the main shaft. Just got the shaft sitting in the case. So this here is the fourth and fifth gear that I took out the set. You can see this fifth gear is worn pretty bad. clog. What happened, I didn't push it in gear all the way last time out, and it just wore the gear out, wore the gear down. Right here, what happened in the burnout, if I don't push that shifter all the way in place, that gear and that slider hit on the corner like this and make it easier to jump out of gear, and it'll round those two clogs on the slider and the gear and cause it to start jumping out of gear more. See what happens? See, once I push this lever, it pushes the slider and engages the gear. See, right now the transmission is in neutral. The shifter is in a neutral position. So the main shaft, the output shaft is not turning. Basically because the main shaft gears aren't engaged with the main shaft. But when I move the shifter here, this is first gear. You see the clog is, the slider is splined to the main shaft, and once that slider engages that gear, that gives the gear ratio and engages the gear ratio to the main shaft. See, now the output shaft is turning. It's really a simple, neat design, and this is really how all the clutchless transmissions work. And when you, it's in second gear now. When you put the shifter in second gear, it speeds up the main shaft and causes the previous gear to slide off the back of the ramp of the gear and engage the gear you're going to. In this case, it'll be engaged in second gear. The same thing when you go to third, it'll move the slider, engage the gear to the main shaft, giving you your gear ratio, and speed up the main shaft and kick it out the previous gear. So I have to make sure I push the transmission, the shift in gear all the way, or it'll jump out of gear, basically miss a gear and mess up those sliders. And sometimes if I can catch it fast enough, I can adjust the shifter and engage the gear more to get by through that race. Alright guys, we made our first run. It's not smoking, but transmission jumped out of gear in the burnout, and it jumped out of gear on the return road. I'm trying to adjust it. Most of the time when it jump out of gear like that, it mess up a slider. You have to take the transmission out and pull the slider out. So replace the slider. So I'm gonna try to adjust and see if I can make a couple more passes, but transmission probably gonna have to come out before Sunday. Alright guys, you can see how bad fifth gear is worn. It actually jumped out of fourth gear one time also, but I caught it and got the shifter adjusted. You see this gear is not worn that bad. And actually the sliders are a softer material than the gears themselves, so it's kind of designed to wear the sliders out first so that you don't have to replace the gears as often as the sliders. You can see how bad this slider is worn compared to the gear. I think this slider was on fifth gear. So on this rebuild, we're going to replace fourth and fifth gears, and we're going to replace 4 sliders on second, third, fourth, and fifth gear. We should have a fresh transmission. Also going to put in a rear seal and a rear bushing. This transmission had been leaking a lot out the rear, so I'm going to replace that. So how much did not pushing the shifter in gear cost me? Well, I already had a fourth gear, so I just bought a fifth gear. You can see here, cost on the gear is like $250. So for both gears, about $500. And the sliders are right around $100 a piece. So 100 times 4, right at $400 plus shipping, $1,000. So it's not that that's not that bad. Got a fresh transmission, all new sliders, 2 new gears in it, ready to go.